about some areas that dyscalculia impacts your child more than math class. Okay. One is time, um, clocks, where your child is in the day. So the whole idea of time is very confusing because if you go back to that numbers as sets, we've made our day into a set of 24 hours. But to a dyscalculic, having to remember these random numbers, okay, there's 60 minutes in an hour. There's 60 seconds in a minute. Just, I mean, it is a nightmare for a dyscalculic because you got all these sets and you don't see how they fit together, right? Um, they also don't have a sense of where they are in the day. So time is going by, and when you're not connected to the idea of time and its groupings and its sets, you're you're not paying attention to that. So my daughter one day was we were doing family chores Saturday morning, cleaning the house, and she started getting really agitated and stressed because she said, "Mom, I'm not going to have time today to finish this art project I'm working on." She's an artist, loves drawing, painting. And I was confused. I thought, what do you mean you have like the whole day? You know, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And she was like, but how do I know? Like, how do I know how much time I'm going to have and if I'm going to have enough? And um, so anyway, we had to pause at that moment. We got her or clock out that I'll show you later. Kind of shows where she's at in the day. And then she could see it visually. Oh, I am here. And I got all this, oops, sorry, all this time until later that I can work on this art. And it really eased her anxiety. But that's just to show you, she didn't know where she was in the day. I have tons of stories about clocks and time not making sense, but we'll talk about that later too. Another aspect that really impacts dyscalculics is schedules and spreadsheets, graphing. And now this is something I didn't realize until much later in our dyscalculic journey. I was making a family schedule, and at the time, my favorite way to do it was on an Excel spreadsheet. And I thought, we're having a hard time. Everyone's always asking me when we're doing what, and so I'm just going to post a family calendar. You know, you got so many Pinterest people telling me post a family calendar and it'll solve all your problems. So I posted the family calendar. I posted the daily schedule. My daughter would never look at those. Now my second daughter, she found it very intriguing and loved looking at those posted calendars and schedules. My dyscalculic daughter never looked at them. And I remember one day we were talking about her schedule. She was like, "Yeah, I never look at that thing you have on the wall. That is so confusing." And I was like, "What?" I thought, I love that thing. It makes everything make so much sense. Not for her. And I'm still working out the complication of that, but I think it also has to do with the groupings and the sets together, the list of numbers along the end. Um, and I know this is not only her because I hear from adult dyscalculics all the time that spreadsheets are a nightmare. So they have to deal with spreadsheets at work, and it's very stressful for them to interpret what that spreadsheet is saying. Another thing that's difficult for dyscalculics and the impacts is anything that's organized and connected to numbers. So the addresses on our street, there's a pattern, there's a reason, there's a number sequence to those. And to a dyscalculic, you will be surprised how many of them don't actually know what that number sequence is or the pattern. Driving along, you can kind of guess when the next house is going to be, right? Because the numbers are going smaller or larger. Not for dyscalculic. You better hope they have a Google map that says you are here or you have arrived. Um, because understanding those number sequences is going to be very tricky. Not even to mention having to remember a number sequence. So, speaking of number sequences, dates, remembering dates that are either written all with digits. So, 4, 15, 10. It's a nightmare for dyscalculics. Um, they probably need to write out, April 15th, 2010, or whatever the date is. The other thing that's complicated with that is such things as like social studies class, where there's so many dates and so many numbers. So my daughter brought home her social studies quiz recently, practice test, and half of the questions were numbers. How long is this river? How many years did this war go on? What year was so and so born? How old is this monument? I mean, half the thing. And she was not going to be able to do very well on that. I talk about later how to advocate for those things, but these are the issues that come up in everyday life that people are not aware of that really impact dyscalculics. And they don't even realize necessarily that it's connected to their dyscalculia. They just feel dumb or like not able to do what everyone else is doing or confused. And so it's really important that we are aware of these things. And once you start noticing and looking around, you'll be like, whoa, there's a lot of numbers happening everywhere, right? You go to drop your kid off. I went to drop my kid off at paddling camp for summer. And the first thing they look at her and they're like, what's your weight? One is a horrible question to ask a middle schooler. But two, she has no idea if she weighs 10 pounds or 100 pounds. Um, I asked her later, I said, if I hadn't answered for you, what were you going to say? I'm just curious. And she had some, I can't even remember, but it was like some huge number. She was like, I had way over guessed. Like she just has no idea what that number might be. Um, and that could happen for a lot of things, like remembering phone numbers. Can you imagine trying to remember your social security number? Is hard enough for most of us. For a dyscalculic, a sequence of numbers that long, and then everyone's looking at you like, are you really who you say you are? You can't give me your phone number accurately. You can't give me your social security number. I was getting new tires on my car recently, and the person behind the desk said to a man, "What's your phone number?" Just like real quick. And he was like, "Oh, just a minute. I have to look that up." And I thought to myself, I bet this guy's dyscalculic has no idea. And he had to look up his own phone number. Meanwhile, the lady's looking at him like, are you who you say you are? Is this really your car? Very unfair. So anyway, those are some ways that dyscalculia really impacts everyday life. And I would encourage you this week, your homework is to start noticing the world from the point of view of a dyscalculic. And this could be hard. It's hard to see the world from someone else's point of view, and sometimes we need help. And I think that your child would be a great place to start. So ask them. I've had parents ask their kids, where do you notice numbers in the world? And come up with some very interesting things. One of the things about dyscalculia is just one of the signs and symptoms is not being able to subbutize. So see a small quantity and know what that is. And one mom found out that when her son saw 4 glasses on the table, he didn't actually just see 4 glasses. He had to count how many glasses were on the table. And she never knew that he was counting each glass. And so that would happen for me. I didn't know that my daughter was individually counting each dot on the dice when we played a dice game. I didn't know that she couldn't just see that there was 5 or see that there was 3. So just start paying attention and asking. You could tell your kid, hey, I'm taking this class on dyscalculia to learn about it. And I want to learn what it's like to see the world from your point of view. And I bet your kid will have some interesting things to say. And also, you sharing that with them is really saying, I see you, I'm here with you, I want to understand you. And that is going to be just powerful in its own way, but will also help you get a better feel for what the world looks like for them.